Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Think Tank community. Place for all passionate players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. Vex and I are flying solo, and we are talking USA hockey and particularly the American-born player path to the NHL. So a couple weeks ago, I wrote a blog where I looked at the journeys of all 288 players that played in the NHL in the 2023-2024 season and looked at their journeys and where they came from and what their path was. And we got into the nitty-gritty of it and had some really interesting takes that came from it that honestly, so many people reached out to me after this, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. Before we get there, though, definitely want to bring on the talent of the podcast, the one Jeffrey J. Who, Levecchio. Vex, what's going on today, brother?
What up, my man? Just living the life, just moving and shaking, dog.
Just the dad life now, hey?
I'm watching my little girl cry right now because mom is 5 minutes away from home, and I just want to run up there and kiss her. God, I love her. I love that little bundle of joy so much.
Good for you, man. Good for you. Girl dads all the way.
I
had a lot of fun with this podcast episode. It
was deep dive. You went.
Yeah. This was a labor of love. Definitely a labor of love that took me multiple months to kind of get it all together and actually write it. But it's interesting. Like, I've always been of the mindset that there's not one right way to get to the elite levels of hockey, and I went into this with that in mind, but also like, hey, let's see what the data shows us, anecdotally, just from being in college hockey and also being in youth hockey, had the past of so many of the kids that go through, and everyone's different, man. Everyone's different. And so I wanted to see that if that was actually the case from the data for American-born players. And it certainly came out that way, but there was a lot of interesting things through it. And it was really cool to, after writing it myself and getting all the feedback and getting all the notes from so many people from around the hockey world, getting the chance to be able to sit and talk with you about it was pretty cool too.
Man, and I can't believe how many different ways you sliced and diced it up too. Guys, Topher really went to town on this puppy. Like he dialed in so many different numbers and factors of all the American-born players that have played in the NHL last year. You're gonna love this. You're gonna absolutely love it. And if you haven't read it yet, I would say read it while you're listening or read it before, because we go over it in pretty great detail. It's one of the longest podcast episodes we've done in a minute because Toph, again, Mr. Mad Scientist, went deep, and I can't wait till you hear the conclusions because it's everything that we say on this podcast. I'm not going to go into that, but these numbers are pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think the really cool part of it too was the amount of people that reached out to me afterwards, and just like the different types of people that reached out to me. Like, I had NHL agents reach out to me saying, this is stuff that's really going to help me in communicating with my players. College coaches, same thing. As far as communicating with their players, and youth, I've had a ton of people in youth hockey, that were saying the same things. Like it's just honestly, I think the best part about the end result is just the conversation starters to be had about the game of hockey through what kind of came out through the data in looking at all of the journeys of the players who have come through the United States that are playing in the NHL right now. And it's 288 players, man. Like it's really, really good. And one of the things that I think we need to really think about, and I said this at the beginning of the article, is like, things are changing. Things are changing rapidly in hockey. And so, as USA Hockey, Americans, whatever it may be, like we have some things going on right now that could potentially stunt the growth and stunt the momentum that we've built in our country of developing so many of these elite players that are going on to do these great things in the NHL. And you think about just the businessification of youth hockey and it really affecting the overall amount of number and growth of players in our country, particularly boys players, with how expensive it's getting, how crazy it's become. It's kind of driving some people away. And then, the CHL. The CHL, with their ability to send kids to play college hockey now, major junior players used to be deemed professionals and couldn't play college hockey, and that rule is over and done with. And so you're going to see college hockey become a lot more Canadian, which is going to hurt the amount of numbers of Americans that are going to play in the NHL, because college hockey is a great developmental league for the NHL. So like these numbers, at the end of the day, I think the beauty of it, like I said, is it allows us to have some deeper discussions and conversations about what's going on in the journey and the path to the NHL, which, as we found out, there's a lot of different ways to get there. But yeah, man, I just it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to start having some of those conversations with some really high level people in the game.
Well, yeah, and I think everybody listening to it, like, those are going to be the takeaways you're going to have is, it's, again, we live in the age of social media, and it does so much great stuff, and the internet, and it also does, so much tomfoolery with everyone's minds. And you see, the best players at your age bracket, signing, tendering, this, that, committing, and you think, oh my God, I'm the same age as him, I've got to be where he is. No, you don't. The path is different. Everyone is different. If it's something you really want, something you really are going after, this podcast is really going to help you to calm down, be where your feet are, live every day in the present, do everything you can, because you're going to hear all of the different ways that you can get to the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah. And not every way was the same, like you look at a player, like there's a way for the early mature. There's a way for the late mature. There's a way from people from up north. There's a way from people from down south. Like, and that was like the end of the article. And then we got into it at the end is like, hey, things are more in your control than you think. Like, if you really have a hope and a dream of doing that, like there's a way and I think I wrote it in the article, where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so, yeah, it's one thing if you want it bad enough and are willing to put in the work necessary, there's a way for everybody. And so just before we do get into it, like, I want to make sure that I say this. So I tried as best as I can and went to inhuman amount of lengths to make sure that this data was accurate. Because like, if it's not, then this whole project is like, it doesn't mean anything.
It would be moot.
It would be moot. Yes.
What a hilarious word.
Yeah. So like in getting all this information, and again, like, you can only work with the information that you have and that you research. But like, I went to, Elite Prospects, Hockey DB, Quant Hockey, Hockey Reference, ChatGPT, Google searches, even making phone calls to people who know people in certain areas if I didn't really feel like I had the right kinds of information on people and their journeys and stuff. And so this was definitely a labor of love, and wanted to, get as close to as 100% accuracy on this stuff as possible. Yeah, spent a lot of time doing that. So just before we get into it, like, what are the things that I was looking at? Well, you think about date of birth. Is there a relative age effect? Age. So what age are all these players in the NHL? Junior hockey, what was their junior hockey path? And we talk a lot about the national program and the NTDP. College hockey, where they played college hockey, how many years they played college hockey, how many years they played junior hockey. Talked about the NHL draft and where they were drafted. We talk about how many games they played in the AHL, different positions, and then where they grew up and the youth journey we kind of detail as well. So a lot of stuff in there that can produce a lot of different fun conversations about hockey development and what's going on within the United States and our hockey development model. So hopefully you guys can take that article. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. If you do want to read it beforehand, But obviously, we'll get into a lot of the stuff in even more depth here on this podcast that you are about to hear. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Before we do get over, we do have some people to thank. Vex, I'm going to put you on the spot right now, and I want you to thank our title sponsor of icehockeysystems.com. Go.
That's hilarious because I don't know what you say for them. So
Just check that.
It's a terrible idea.
Well, icehockeysystems.com is the best website out there for all of your coaching education needs. And man, I love these guys so much. The people who run this company, man, hearts of gold, absolute hearts of gold. And what they're providing for the youth hockey world and the hockey world beyond is absolutely incredible. Talking about thousands of drills for all you coaches out there, whiteboard explanations and video breakdowns from really, really high level hockey people. And then you get the opportunity to go in there and draw up your drills and create drill libraries, create practice plan libraries, send them out to your team before practice so they're ready to go. And it's awesome, man. So you can get this just for yourself, or you can get this for your entire association. So we have actually partnered with them on this association's platform. And just imagine, as a hockey director, if you have the ability to have a drill library or a practice plan library from your coaches that anybody can go to at any time, especially the people who are working 9 to 5s and then picking their kids up and eating dinner on the go and don't necessarily have the time to sit down and plan a practice like they would want to. So this is just an incredible value add. So go to icehockeysystems.com today and check out that association's platform. Jeffrey, go ahead.
I want to say thank you to Train Heroic. Train Heroic is the amazing platform that allows me to work with so many players, teams, organizations across the world. Just today alone, I had 2 new organizations reach out wanting to work with me. Guys, whether your players are below 16, can't drive to a gym, and you want them getting some home workouts in during the off season or the in season, you want team workouts at a gym of your choosing, I can build out programs and do for tons of teams at whatever gym they have in the rink with whatever equipment they have, because you could have the best program ever, but if you don't have any of the same equipment that I do, you can't do it. So I build customized programs for teams and individuals based on the gyms at their rink or for just a normal public gym. And I just cannot thank Josh and his whole team over at Train Heroic enough for helping me help the hockey world, now having over 30,000 hockey players train with me online. Division 1, Division 3, ACHA, USHL, NOL, EHL, and NCH, all the different leagues, all of them, all right? I've worked with teams everywhere, so I can help you, whether you're a coach of a team or a player. Reach out, I can help, and it's all because of Train Heroic, so thank you guys.
Boom. Also want to thank Helios Hockey, one of the best products out there on the hockey market. This is a sensor that you put into your shoulder pad that gives you real-time data and feedback on your play, specifically what a lot of the kids love and they call a hustle score. So every time you move, that thing lights up and it clocks your hustle, which is really, really cool. And then specifically on your stride mechanics and stride length, if you want to be an elite hockey player, play at these elite levels that we're going to be talking about here today, skating is fundamentally the most important skill that you need to have. I would say skating and passing. I always love to put passing in there, but this is a phenomenal product for that. And the game changer with it too is that, like I said, this lights up whenever you are going, and it pairs up with your video, whatever you're using. So that's an iPad, iPhone, camera, hooks up to LiveBarn. You will get your shifts or your reps in practice cut up for you right when you're done. So it's just a phenomenal product for development on the skating side. Skating, an incredibly, incredibly important skill. And then from a video side as well.
And something really cool, guys, if you're still listening to this, one of my retired professional hockey players, Michael Hunnebrinker, is now offering one-on-one individualized video sessions, both in person if you live in St. Louis, or online to people listening to the podcast or work with me in my online training on Train Heroic. All right. And it's so easy if you are a Helios member, because your shifts are already cut up. All you got to do is send him the tape and he will cut them, slice and dice, and then have meetings with you. If you're interested in this extremely valuable service, all you got to do is reach out to me and I will connect you with Michael, one of my favorite clients of all time, who had an amazing junior, college, and pro career.
Boom. There we go. So go to helioshockey.com today. And if you use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, you will get 20% off your pro annual or pro 24-month subscription. Or you can go to helioshockey.com/teams and get this for your entire team. Lastly, we want to thank Crossbar. Crossbar is an amazing software product that can help you to streamline your youth hockey club's operations. It is incredible. I know so many different hockey directors and presidents that have made the switch over from Sports Engine to Crossbar and have been very, very happy in doing that. And so what does Crossbar afford you? It gives you awesome website design. So it's really sleek, really easy to use for all us technologically challenged people out there. They got registration for everything from your full season to drop-ins, clinics, and lessons. They have a club scheduler to organize all your scheduling, a 5-star communication app to communicate with your families, financial tools and reporting, volunteer and facility management. Like literally, this is a one-stop shop to help streamline all your operations for your youth hockey club. So go to crossbar.org today and check that out. Also, thank you to all of our amazing listeners. We love you guys so much. We really, really appreciate you guys. The only thing that we potentially ask in return, if you should feel moved to do so, is just interacting with our podcast on your podcast app by shooting us a rating, shooting us a review, leaving a comment, downloading us, following our show. All that stuff goes a long, long way for us to be able to grow our show and to get into more ears. And if you feel like we're living our mission of making the hockey world a better place, anytime you can do that, we would just really, really appreciate that. So thank you guys so much. I hope you really, really enjoy this episode here. A lot of lessons to be learned in youth hockey from it. So without further ado, here we go with our next podcast on the American-born journey to the NHL. All right, what's shaking, everybody? I am really excited for this episode here today. And first of all, I want to give a little bit of a backstory. So we're going to talk about the 288 players that are American-born that played in the NHL a couple seasons ago, the 23-24 season. And Vex, I think it might be best to kind of like give a little backstory on kind of where this came from, why I did it, and kind of like the methodology. You think that's probably a good place to start?
Absolutely. I also want to know how long it took you, because it is a deep dive. It is awesome.
It is a very, very deep dive. It took me a couple months, honestly, to do. Like when you're researching 288 players, that's a labor of love to say the least. But like, I wanted to do this, and I wanted to come at this from like an objective lens first and foremost, because like I feel like so much of what we hear in particularly youth hockey, but then when you get up to like midget, junior ages, like if you want to play at the highest levels of hockey, you have to do this or you have to do that. You know what I mean? Like, do you feel that sentiment too?
Yes, 100%.
So like, you know, to get from A to B, you have to follow these steps. And like, I feel like we know just from everybody that we see and know, and especially me coming as a former college coach, like I feel like that's not the case. And there's so many different routes, paths, you know, twists, turns, all that kind of stuff. If you do have hopes and dreams of playing at the highest levels of hockey, and you could probably take some of the stuff, you know, this is an NHL study, but you could probably take some of this stuff and even think about like junior and college hockey with that. There's so many different routes to those levels as well. And so like, I wanted to do the research to see if that was like the case. Like, is it a one size fits all? Like, are there certain things that kids should be doing in, you know, their older level youth ages to help put them in a position to get there? Or is it, there's a ton of different ways and a ton of different paths. Anecdotally, you and I both totally on the ton of different ways, ton of different paths page. But like coming into this, I wanted to see from the data if that was actually true. Right. So like, yeah, like I used so many different avenues to gather this data, gather this information. A lot of it was done just, you know, cold hard research on the internet through Elite Prospects and Quant Hockey, Hockey DB, ChatGPT, Google, you know, making a couple phone calls when I needed to fill in the gaps with different information, but also like just my knowledge of being a former college recruiter and understanding the landscape. And a lot of the kids that are playing in the NHL right now were playing midget hockey, junior hockey back when I was a college coach too, so knowing their journeys, right? But the one thing that I thought was really, really important was making sure that I got everything as close to as dead accurate as possible. If I didn't do that, then this little project that I did would not be worth anything. So I like scoured the internet and filled in the gaps where I needed to make sure that, like, you know, every kid's path was as close to 100% as it may be. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So in doing this, and it's been really cool. So the day that we are recording this is actually the day that I put this out there in the public. And yeah, like, thank you so much for all like the feedback that I'm getting, you know, like, and that's why, like, I wanted to make sure I was 100% accurate, because I didn't want the feedback to be like, this is BS numbers, like this isn't true. And I haven't got any of that yet. So I'm happy about that. But also, you know, I've had NHL agents reach out saying, thanks, this is actually going to help me in communicating with my players. You know, I've had college coaches reach out. I've had a lot of parents and youth coaches reach out, because like how we communicate the development path, I think, is really important. I think it's really, really important. And I think every kid has their own unique path. Are there similarities with a lot of different? Sure, there's some similarities with different paths, but at the end of the day, every kid goes through different ups and downs at different times. Every kid matures physically, you know, either early or late. Every kid develops emotionally at different times during their development journey. Different parts of the country, different ability levels. Like, there's so many different nuances that we don't even think about when it comes to this path to high level hockey, that so much of our communication is a one size fits all. But that's just not how it works. It's not how it works. And so I wanted to give a little bit of a backstory, a little bit of an intro into why I did this, how I did this, before we kind of dive into what we found. Any thoughts just before we get into that, even just on how I went about kind of doing this, if that makes any sense?
Yeah. I mean, I was, I didn't know how to take the NTDP stats, you know, like you wrote, you know, okay, well, look at it this way, and then also like look at it this way, and I was like, yeah, okay. But I loved what you said, especially regarding NTDP. Okay, 13, 14, 15-year-old parents, this shows you that if your kid doesn't make the program, you're okay. They can still play in the NHL. You don't need to pull your hair out, lose your mind, sell your house, move. Like, you know, like it's okay.
And in a lot of instances, it's probably better off that you didn't make it.
Right. So
than if you did. And we'll get into that. Into that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that was kind of like the backstory. And then, like, do you want to just dive in? Let's just dive into the numbers.
Dive right in, baby. Like
okay.
Scrooge
So
McDuck.
First we'll give kind of like what I was looking for. So what were the actual data points that I wanted to look at? And so first, you know, there's this thing called the relative age effect. And it goes by date of birth. So Malcolm Gladwell wrote in one of his books, and it's actually a hockey related story about, like, he was at a junior hockey game up in Canada, and he was looking at the roster, and he noticed that, like, so many of the players on that elite team, that WHL team, were from like they were born in like the first 4 months of the year. Well, that's interesting. And then he did some more research into it, and turns out that, like, where your birthday is might actually matter as it relates to getting to the elite levels of whatever sport that you're in. And so I wanted to see from the numbers, is that actually the case in hockey? You know, is there a relative age effect where if you're born in the first couple months or the first half of the year, it's going to be a huge benefit to you as it relates to that. So that was the first thing. The second thing, age, like, how old are players in the NHL from the US right now? You know, is it more younger players? Is it more older players? Somewhere in the middle? Want to see the age. We like to say that development's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But if there's a majority of the players that are 21 years old and younger that are in the league, then maybe it is a sprint. So wanted to see that. Next, we talked about junior hockey, right? So junior hockey is a big part of the fabric of getting to play at the highest levels of hockey. So what junior leagues are these kids coming from? How many years did they play junior hockey? You know, there's a lot of different things being talked about right now as far as the CHL and major junior kids being able to play in college now. So a lot of this is actually going to change as it relates to junior hockey, but wanted to know about that. Then college hockey. right? Like, where are kids coming from in the NHL that played college hockey? What different leagues? Which teams are they coming from? How many years did they play college hockey? That was a big one. Is it a sprint or is it a marathon? Is it better off to marinate a little bit more before you get up to pro hockey? Wanted to know about that. So that was number 4. The 5th one was the draft, the NHL draft. Like, where were our Americans getting drafted, if they were even drafted at all? And is getting drafted in a certain round or at a certain time going to be beneficial to making the NHL at the end of the day? So the draft was the next one. Then I went through and looked at the numbers for each of the 288 players. Did they play? How much time did they spend in the AHL? How much time did they spend in the AHL? I think that's a really important, when you talk about NHL, it's a really important stat to have, is how long, right? Did they play in the NHL? How long were they in the AHL? How much did they need to marinate before they were ready? Like, those stats are interesting to say the least. And I think there's a life skill that I wrote about it, which we'll talk about here today, that I think is really important as it relates to that. Also, the 7th thing was the different positions. So are we in America developing forwards better, D better, goalies better, worse? Like, where are we at in our American development model and developing different positions? And then lastly, I wanted to talk about, like, where these kids grew up, where are they from? Where were their youth hockey journeys? And so that was the last one. It's just like, what did those journeys potentially look like in some of those different areas? Okay, so that was a mouthful. So those were the things that I wanted. When you went in and read it, before we get into the numbers, were there any of these that, like, for you, you're like, ooh, I'm looking forward, as I introed all of those, really looking forward to see?
I liked that you broke down how many guys played how many years of juniors. I think that's also you did age of or how many years they played college too. I think that's something that a lot of people need to see. Did you put how old freshmen were when they entered college, or how old they were their first year in the NHL, or their first game in the NHL?
Yeah, so I did not their first game in the NHL, but when they went to college. I did have that age. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That obviously, that's a great stat. I love people seeing that. People need to know that one. Again, marathon, not a sprint. I hadn't talked about this in a while. One of my guys came up to me who's in a little bit lower level of a junior league, and because I put Teddy Roosevelt's The Man in the Arena.
I saw that. That's pretty sick.
It's my favorite. I don't know if you call that. It's not a poem, I don't think. I don't know what you call that, like paragraph, statement, whatever. Statement, yeah, whatever you call that, right? So I put that in the bathrooms and locker rooms in my new gym. And one of the kids came up to me who just played his first year juniors. He's like, I really needed to read that, and I really need to, like, live with that mindset, because all my friends are going to college next year, and they're all like, what are you doing? What is junior hockey? Why are you doing that? And I hadn't had a guy in a few years, like, come to me and say that. It's been a minute. And I remember me going through that and trying to explain people in St. Louis what junior hockey was, my school friends, my NARP friends. And and so... What? You don't know what a NARP is? Oh, dude, it's so bad. Oh, the kids taught me this. A NARP is a non-athletic regular person. Non-athlete regular person. A NARP.
And they're they're calling us DAs, dumb athletes. Yeah.
Right. So, but like that weighs on him. Like all his buddies and friends are going to college next year. He's a senior and he's going to wherever to play junior hockey, and they're all like, no, come to school with us, and that type of thing. So, obviously I'm going to send him this and show all the guys, send it to all my guys and be like, look, like what I'm telling you is obviously real. Toph did all of the hard scientific work and the data. Check it out.
Funny.
So that was a good one.
You mentioned that junior hockey thing, because I played 3 years of junior hockey in high school, and I also lived in my home and went to my hometown high school in junior hockey, playing for the Steel and living in Chicago. And so my friends, same thing. They'd be like, what is this thing? Why are you always gone? This junior hockey, they just didn't get it. But the funniest part was, like, they're used to, if they're going to go watch a youth game, it's that looks like that. And then you go to a junior game and it looks like pro hockey. People have half shields on and all this. So they come, and you try as best you can to explain, but they get it, but they don't really get it. And then they come to a game and they see it and they're like, what in the world is going on right now? This is like pro hockey.
Right.
So then you're finally like, but you don't, you're like trying to be humble about it. And it was always really funny trying to do that. But when they came, I just have distinct memories after the game of some of my, I guess you can call them NARP. Was it NARP?
NARP, non-athlete.
Yeah.
Regular
just been
person.
like, what in the world is going on? That was so cool. You get the laser shows before the game and, all that stuff. But anyways, I digress.
Love it.
All right. You want to get into the numbers here?
Hey.
Okay, so I'll kind of just go in sequential order of how I wrote the article. If you haven't read the article yet and you want to read it before like listening to this, we'll put it in the show notes at the bottom of the podcast app here. But the first thing I wanted to look at was birthdays, right? So like is there a relative age event effect? If you were born in the first half of the year, the first couple months in the year, is that going to actually affect the numbers? And so where this kind of comes from is when you think about youth hockey and you're at particularly the birth year model, when you're younger, because it starts when you're young, just to give some perspective on this, a lot of kids make teams in youth hockey because they're more physically mature than their counterparts. Doesn't necessarily mean they're better players. They're just 8 months older. And so they're 2 inches taller, a little heavier, a little faster, all that kind of stuff. So we tend to pick the physically mature kids on our top teams more. And then with that, typically in your top teams in a level, you're going to have the better coaching at the AA level than maybe the A level or the B level in however you classify your youth organization. And then from that, those kids get better, right? So like it starts even young when it comes to this. And then it kind of snowballs from there because then you're making teams as opposed to the other kid who at a young age didn't make the team because they were just physically immature and then didn't get the coaching. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So is this true? Is there a relative age effect? And so what I wrote in here was like, yeah, a little bit. Like, yeah, like there is a little bit, but it's not something that should deter you from like achieving your dreams if you were born, because the month that was the most was January, kind of by a lot, to be honest. Like 38 of the NHL players were born in January, but number 2 was July, which is in the second half of the year, right? It's the 7th month. I'm July. I didn't make the NHL, but that's my birthday. You're August. So like there was a little bit of a tendency to be towards the front, but it wasn't like so insurmountable that it's like the biggest deal in the world. So just going through it, like first was January, then you have July, and then it's February and May. And then you get down to like December, November, October, and April are all kind of the same. March is a little bit of a head. So like, there is a little bit, but not a ton. Not a ton. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anything else? just yes.
Just yes. I mean, dude, I'm loving listening to this because like this is stuff all of my guys need to hear. Like I'm making them all listen to this episode.
I like it. And so it's really funny. I actually put this story in there, which you read, but like I have a buddy of mine who he's so funny. I might have even told this story on the podcast, but he's a beauty. And he's like, he goes to his wife. He's like, hey, I know you wear the pants in the relationship. Like I do as I'm told. I'm a good soldier. I try to do everything to the best of my ability for this family. I just have one request. I just want one request. And his wife's like, what? He's like, I want a first rounder. I want a first rounder based on
just a small request.
I want a first rounder. And what he meant by that is let's try to have the baby. Let's time it so the baby's due date is in January. So they actually got to work at the right time and had a due date of January. And karma is a really, really funny thing because the baby came way early and the baby ended up coming out at the end of December. And so they had a little girl. So him being him and like he jokingly, but not jokingly was doing it. And they welcomed the baby girl at the end of December. And I thought it was like the funniest thing ever, but he's okay. He's completely okay.
He survived
an effect, but it's not a crazy thing.
Yeah. I love that. I started laughing so hard when I read that story, and every single hockey player knows that. Like, they all feel that. They're all like, yeah, you got to have that, January, February, baby. And also, you got to marry a girl who's like 6'6".
Yeah. Oh, man. Yep. I'm 5'4", married a 5'2" woman. So, like, yeah, genetically, they didn't win that lottery. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
At least for height, athletic.
Yes.
Stuff. Okay, so that was the relative age effect. When are they born?
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The next thing that I wanted to look at was the breakdown of like how old each player was during the season. And so there was a nice little bell curve. So for you statistics majors, you know what a bell curve is, but like for those that don't, the bell curve is kind of like a little bit on one side, a little bit all the way far on the other side, and a lot that kind of in the middle. So when you look at it, there was actually only 7 players, 20 years old and younger, that played in the NHL from the States last year. And then you had 2 39-year-olds, 2 38-year-olds, which I thought was pretty funny. These are all guys that we played against, the Pavelskis and the Suders and the Goligoskis. And who was the other guy? Parise. Like those were guys in that season that were the elder statesmen at 38 and 39. But there was like the biggest thing was like there was a really big drop off after like 31, 32 years old, which makes sense. And the reason why is like obviously the league has gotten a lot faster and young players are a little bit faster. But at the same time, you need to be able to win. You have to have good players on cheap rookie contracts to be able to win. And so that has even more kind of treaded towards the younger, why you're seeing so many less players over 31, 32 that are played in the league, just from a contractual standpoint. So yeah. Any thoughts on that one? But like, yeah,
I mean, that just makes sense. Like if you're old, you're not going to be as good. You're just too old. Look at her. You can't take grandma's house. She's too old.
Too old.
You're going to hate me now. I got to take the house.
I got to take the house. No, that's okay. By the way, can you wait? I cannot wait until that movie comes out, Happy Gilmore 2.
Do you know when it's out?
I think it's this summer sometime.
Oh my God. I haven't been to a movie. I haven't been to a movie in years. I think I've been to one movie since COVID.
Yeah.
And so like that's one that I'll definitely go back for.
I should like drive down to St. Louis. You should bring the girls up here and we should go see it together.
Need to.
Yeah. Or maybe I should go down there and we'll go with Muntz.
Oh, need it. Me, you, Muntz, Staz. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and the funny thing is like I think about like how I feel now at 39 years old.
I know you
40.
wrote that in there. I saw that.
And like think about these guys like going on playoff runs at the age that I'm at, the way that my body feels. It's like that is remarkable.
After playing 82 games a year for the last how many years too? And you've been retired for
100%.
how many years? It's wild, man.
Oof,
it's so
crazy.
cool.
But the amount of work and detail that goes into your preparation to be able to play that many years of professional hockey is like that. We can't understate enough how special that is and how dedicated you have to be able to do that.
And I was talking to some college and junior guys who are already home training with me, maybe even junior midget guys, about they were just asking like, what's the difference between pro and college and yada yada yada. And I was like, every pro team that I played on, the oldest guys were always the first guy to the rink.
Yeah.
I was like, so yeah, they probably need to warm up a little more Yeah, some of them want to get out of the house because they have kids and they want to get out of the house and be able to be in the right frame of mind longer before, because when they go home, they're going to have to be dad. And the young guys are not doing that. They're going out and eating and hanging out and, hitting the town and things like that, maybe after practice. Whereas older guys have to go home and be a parent and show up for that type of stuff too. But it's not an accident. The older guys get there earlier because they know how important that is, how important their preparation is, getting their mind right, their body right, all of those types of things. And a lot of younger guys come sailing in right before they're supposed to be there. And it's just a different mindset. And there's a reason that all the older guys who are still able to play at that age, why they're able to play at that age. And you said it, preparation is massive.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, little bell curve, a little bit of young, a little bit of old, little maybe we're trending more young, but like for the most part, it was pretty equidistant. So that is the age. The third thing that I dove into, we'll probably talk a lot about this one, is junior hockey. And so where did these kids play junior hockey? Did they play junior hockey at all? How many years did they play junior hockey? And so this was really, really interesting. And so the biggest thing is, especially for the parents that are listening who, like our friends in high school, aren't as initiated to what junior hockey is, 87% of the players that played in the NHL, 87% of them played at least 1 year of junior hockey. 87%. There were only 36 that did not play a season. And of those 36, there were a few that played a couple games. Maybe there were prep school kids that played a couple games in the USHL. I didn't really count them because basically if you played more than half a year, I counted you as a year. But that's a significant statistic, I would say. 87% of the players went and played at least 1 year of junior hockey. And so again, that's, I think, the beauty of hockey is that we are so much more open to late maturing kids physically, because we have this runway of junior hockey that they can play before they go to college and, continue their career trying to make the NHL.
Right. Wow, I never thought about it that way, how our sport is kind of a little bit special for that. Because whenever I'm talking to non-hockey people and they're like, wait, you were in Omaha a year out of high school and then you went to college?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, hockey's different. We don't do that. It's kind of goofy. But like that probably allows way more, but that definitely allows, for sure allows way more players to play Division I hockey because they have a longer runway, a longer ramp to up their skills and their ability and all those things to be able to play at those higher levels. I never thought of it that way, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and if you go to even like some of the college numbers, like the average age of a commitment is 19 years old. Like it's after youth hockey, midget hockey, which very few people know. And the average age of a college freshman is 20, right? So like this is pretty much a necessary part of the process. And embrace it. I would say embrace it. I know for me, and we'll get into the numbers of how many years, but like I played 4 years of junior hockey. Now I started earlier than most, shouldn't have. That was a mistake looking back, but like, I needed all 4 of those years to be absolutely ready to play college hockey. And I stepped in to play college hockey as a freshman and was ready and played a lot of minutes and played on the top power play unit. Had I gone in a year earlier, 2 years earlier, like no chance, And so I think that like, yeah, I do think we're a little unique and special in the fact that you don't have to be a finished product at 17 years old or 18 years old to achieve that dream of college hockey at the end of the day. And then, those are just stepping stones to what we were studying here, which was how to make the NHL or what the paths to the NHL were. So I think it's really cool in that sense.
100%.
Okay. Now let's dive into like the numbers of like the different junior leagues and all that kind of stuff. So first of all, of the American born players, right, there was 288 of them. 99 of the 288 played at the national program, played at the NTDP. So that's about one third. And this was funny that you mentioned earlier, like there are a couple different ways that we can look at this. First of all, like 99 players from one program is big time.
Pretty good.
They're pretty good at bringing in the right kids, pretty good at developing them. You know, we obviously know Galley. How about Galley, hired by the Buffalo Sabres, Brian Galvin? How sick is that dude?
Watch. I'm so excited because, I just love Galley, but I'm so excited because everyone's going to see how important people like him are to a team and what they can do to your organization, to the culture of the team, the organization, everyone. I am really, really excited to see what the Buffalo Sabres do over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. So Brian Galvin is now the former head of sports science, strength and conditioning for the national program. Just got a job as, I don't know what his official title is with the Sabres, but something in that capacity. And he's a one of one. He's an absolute stud of a human being. He was first year for us on the podcast. Go back and listen to that one. Just a phenomenal guy. But anyway, so they're doing some things right there, to say the least, in the fact that 99 of the players out of the 288 came through the national program. Now, there's another way to look at this too. And that is 2/3 of the players did not go to the NTP and still made the NHL. And so, again, it goes back to it. You don't have to have things figured out at 14, 15 years old. There's so much more of a runway. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but one can argue, and a lot of people do argue, that if you're not a top dog at the NTDP, it's actually better for you to not be at the NTDP as well. And being the guy in whatever midget team you're going to be on, and then different junior team that you're going to be on, whatever, there's a stat later on that we'll talk about that has to do with that. But it's great to make the national program, represent your country, wear the red, white, and blue. I'm sure all kids that's a goal of theirs. I know people go absolutely BS crazy in the 14 and 15 year while they're choosing the tryout list for the national program and their evaluation camp and stuff like that. And people go absolutely nutty if it doesn't work out. It's okay. It's okay if it doesn't work out. 2/3 of the players that played in the NHL from the States last year did not play at the national program. So just different perspectives on how to think about it.
And those 2/3 that didn't play in the national program were most likely not the top 20 players also. So those weren't even the best players, but they still made it, even though they weren't even the best players, and they played in somewhere else for juniors, because arguably the 20 that make NTDP are the best in the country at their positions. Yeah. So, and it's pretty clean and clear cut that that's the case. So not only are they guys who aren't the top, but also they're playing somewhere else, and they still found a way to make it. 2/3 of the American-born players didn't play there, weren't even the best, and they wound up in the NHL in the same place that we all hope to one day end up. So pretty impactful when you look at it that way.
Yeah, and the other thing too is about a quarter of the kids that played at the national program spent time with another junior hockey program as well. Mm-hmm. So whether that was 1 year at the national program and it wasn't working out, so they went to the CHL to play major junior, or maybe it was a kid that played 2 years at the NTDP but felt they needed another year in the USHL. 25% almost of the kids who played the national program needed to supplement that, needed a different experience because it wasn't working out, or needed more junior hockey experience before they were ready to go play pro hockey if they went major junior, or college if they stayed in the USHL for another year. And so again, no path is perfect, no path is perfect. That's another thing too, is that, you might have a certain situation where you're going down one way and that's the wrong. So now we need to pivot and do something else. And so everything's not the end all be all too. Does that make sense?
100%. Whatever path you wind up on, it's your job
to make the best
of
it
for you. You gotta make it work. You have to make it work. That's it. Talking to a kid now, super high, one of my clients, super high OHL draft pick, super high USHL draft pick, deciding right now, am I going to go to the USHL or the OHL next year?
There's a lot of kids that are deciding that right now. Hey?
Right. And he's asking me, he's like, I have to make my decision by, I think it's this weekend, maybe he said, and I believe that's what he told me. And so it's just, and he's like, I could see in his eyes, he's like nervous. And I'm like, look, both of these teams that drafted you, great options. it really doesn't matter. Whatever you choose, you make that work, and you find a way to make that work. So like whichever one you go with, doesn't matter to me. Go with the one you feel is the best, and then make it the best decision you've ever made. It is up to you to make things work out.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. And going in that, so 17% of the players that played in the NHL from America did play major junior, 49 of them. 30 of those 49, which is a pretty, like 60% of them, played a combination of U.S. junior and Canadian junior. So either typically that's playing U.S. junior and then going to the CHL afterwards, and forfeiting what would have been forfeiting their college eligibility. But now obviously you can play college if you play major junior as well. So a lot of these, honestly, like a lot of these junior numbers are probably going to change with this new rule that's in place. So I don't want to beleaguer too much of this stuff, but the biggest feeder to players that go on to play in the NHL from the States is obviously the USHL. 67%, 2 out of the 3 players played in the USHL. And 99 of those were NTDP kids because the NTDP is in the USHL. And then another 94 play in the USHL just for other teams. So again, like the USHL, really good league, obviously a track record. Things are going to change. USHL is going to have to do a great job of promoting their product now because it's going to be a lot easier for kids from down here to choose to go up and play in the WHL if you're from out west, play in the OHL if you're from the Midwest or some parts of the East, you know, so like the Q for the kids in like Boston and Maine and all that stuff. So, yeah, like the USHL is in a spot right now where they got to up their game, and hopefully they will. I hope they do. We both played in the league. We both enjoyed our experiences in the league. The league made us who we are today. But they're going to have to fight. They're going to have to fight for their kids now, 100%. You just gave an example of that with one of your players that got drafted in both of those leagues. And then finally, like the tier 2 junior leagues, out east, you know, you used to have the old EJ, right? When we were playing the EJHL, and now it's the NCDC. And then there's a couple other leagues too in that realm. There were 15 kids from like Eastern junior leagues. Most of those kids, I shouldn't say most, but about half of those kids played solely in that league, and half of them played in that league and then went on to the USHL. The NA had 13 players. So 13 players that had NA ties ended up playing in the National Hockey League, but only 2 of them only played in the NA. So that means 11 of them went on to play in the USHL after they were done in the NA. And then there's tier 2 leagues up in Canada, you know, the BCHL, the AJ. There was one kid in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, couple in the OJHL. There were 8 kids that went up to Canada to play tier 2, but only 4 of those 8, so half of them played in that league only, and then 4 of them went on to play in a better junior league after that. So that's kind of like where they came from in the league. But the interesting one out is like, how many years did these kids play? How many years did they play junior hockey? And so when you look at it, only 36 did not play junior hockey. That was it. 52 only played 1 year, and 200 of the 288 played multiple years. So that's 70%, almost 3 out of 4 of these kids played multiple years of junior hockey. So that's a telling stat. For me, that's a very telling stat. What are your thoughts?
100%. Don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. Everybody wants to get in a rush. I don't want to play. I only want one year and then go. No. You don't just base that number off of what you see online. You base that number of when to go when you're ready. Same thing like Toph was saying. He played 4 years. I played 3 years. I had a bunch of offers after my second year, and they weren't offers that I wanted as far as how much scholarship money, because I wanted to try and, you know, make college as cheap for my family as I could. I also didn't think that I was fully ready yet. And then after my third year, I knew I was ready, and I had offers to really big schools, a full ride if I would have come back and played a 4th year. But I knew I was ready, and I'm somebody who likes a little bit of a challenge, and I knew I was ready, believed in myself, so that's why I left and went to Western and didn't play that 4th year juniors. But same with Toph. I stepped in. I played the most on the team for forwards as a freshman because I was ready to go. If I would have left after my second year, my senior year in high school, there's no way I would have been as ready mentally, physically, emotionally, you know, responsibility-wise, just so many different things that I had to mature a little bit. And then I went in after my third year and I was ready to freaking go. So, don't be in a rush. Like, numbers are telling a story here, and most guys played more than 1 year juniors.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. So 134 played 2 years. 37 played 3 years. 24 played 4 years, and 5 kids that made the NHL played 5 years of junior hockey.
Wow, those last two, what was it, 4 and 5 or 3 and 4?
4 and 5, yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. And we know, and you kind of mentioned it, like the first year of junior hockey for a vast majority of the kids will be the hardest year of hockey you will have in your career.
Yep.
In your entire career. I'm talking college, I'm talking pro, those transitions, not even close to as hard as, youth hockey, midget hockey to junior hockey, especially if you're going in a little bit younger. It's just such a different lifestyle. It's such a different locker room. It's such a different game. It's so much more of a grind. I like to say that junior hockey made a man out of me. Like, that's where I learned to be a man, was in junior hockey. You're a big boy now. You got responsibilities. And so, yeah, a lot of what you'll hear or have read, it's not a marathon, guys. It's not a sprint for a lot of people. It's a marathon. And there is room for the non-marathon people. Again, 88 of the people played none or 1 year of junior hockey. But again, it goes back to the theme of this entire thing. There's not one right way. There's multiple ways to get there. Just got to, whatever your way is, make the best of it.
It's multiple ways to skin a cat. Never
ways.
Understood that saying. Don't know why anybody be skinning a cat, but you know what I mean.
Okay, here we go. Next we have college hockey. And college hockey is obviously a huge driver of American-born players to go and play in the National Hockey League. So, a couple different things. What leagues were the best? What teams were the best? And then how old were kids when they first started college hockey? And then how many years did they play? Those were the 4 things. And honestly, that the leagues and teams, it's not a great stat as far as like a school or a league's ability to develop high-level players, because there's a lot of Canadian kids and Europeans that come to play college hockey that go on to play in the NHL as well. So it's not completely representative. This is, again, this project was just American-born players. So let's caveat that. Caveat? Which one is it? Caveat.
I think it's the first one.
I think so too. So we won't beleaguer this too much, but as far as the leagues are concerned, Big Ten was number 1 at 81. The NCHC and Hockey East were 2 and 3 at 67 and 65. ECAC was next at 26. And then the WCHA was 7. Atlantic Hockey 1. Mark Johnstone, who played for Sacred Heart, was the Atlantic Hockey kid. And so again, like this does not have Canadian kids on there, which there's a lot of Canadian kids that play college hockey that go on anyway. So now which teams have the most American-born players? I know you read it, but give me your top 5 of what your guess would be on who would develop the most American-born players to go on to the NHL.
Michigan.
Okay.
Denver.
Okay.
This was players that played in the NHL last year.
Yeah, 2023-2024 season. Not that should matter.
Well, like there's a little bit of flow and like 10 years ago, Wisconsin, Miami of Ohio, I'd say, but maybe not now.
Yeah.
Western Michigan wouldn't be up there, but they got numbers. Every year they get more. What's up? Not a big deal. Western Michigan plug. I don't know after that. Those are the 2 that I'm like, all right, sick. Yeah.
Number 1, Minnesota.
Duh. Yeah.
Number 2, Michigan at 25 and 24. Number 3, Boston College.
Oh, yeah.
At 18.
Yep.
Number 4, Boston University.
UBU. Yep.
At 16. Number 5, Minnesota Duluth was number 5.
Wow.
Yep. So they do a great job, man. Scott Standel and his staff, phenomenal job. Their style of play, the way they hold people accountable, it's pro. Like it's pro there. And then you got Notre Dame at 12. North Dakota, Wisconsin at 11, Miami of Ohio at 10. Denver's actually they had 8. Western Michigan had 7. So I won't go through all of it, guys.
Yeah.
You can go to the article and read it if you really want to know where your favorite school, how many American players have come through. But again, it's not completely representative because you're leaving out Canadians and Europeans. So caveat that. Okay, next. How old were these kids when they went to play college hockey? This is a big one for me. This was one I was really interested in looking at. And so the way that I divvied it up is like I used September 1st as the grocery stick. September 1st is kind of like the closest first of the month to when school starts for a year, right? So how old were they when school started for them their freshman year? And so 19 kids were 17 years old. You had 125 kids that were 18 years old. You had 71 kids that were 19. You had 27 kids who were 20, and you had 2 kids who were 21 years old when they started their freshman year. Now, all the 17-year-olds, there were 19 of them. 18 of the 19 had late birthdays. They had late birthdays, so they were born after September 1st, September, October, November, December. So that's why they started their freshman year at 17 years old. So they turned 18 shortly thereafter. And then 18 years old, there were 125. So here's the rub for this for me. And again, it goes back to the theme of everybody has a different path. You have 144 players that went to school for their freshman year at 17 or 18. And then you had 100 players that went 19 to 21 years old. That's a 60-40 split. So you got your studs and you got your late matures. That's why I think college hockey is so great for so many kids, especially the late matures, is because it gives you more years on your runway to achieve your dream of playing college hockey. You don't have to be ready at 18 or 19 or 20. You have that runway. And so, just really, really interesting how it was a 60-40 split, young and old,
Develop. You don't play your first year juniors as much as you want. All you need, just keep focusing on development throughout that whole year. Yeah. And going a little bit deeper on that dive, because I've had a lot of guys, and like Toph said, and we say on this podcast all the time, for almost every single player that I have ever worked with that played junior hockey, their first year juniors was the hardest year of hockey in their whole life. Even if they wind up playing 10 years in the NHL, first year juniors still the hardest year of hockey. So we need to focus on that first year's development if you're not playing. Don't get pouty. Don't get sad. Don't get nervous. Am I getting scratched? Am I not getting scratched? None of that matters because you're more than likely going to have to play 2, 3, 4, 5 years of junior hockey. So if you switch your mindset to being, I'm just going to get as good as I can today, eventually you will get to the point where you don't get taken out of the lineup anymore and you do play top 2 lines, top 2 D pairing, get on the power play, get on the penalty kill. But if you don't have that growth mindset and think all that matters is developing, whether I'm here for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, development is all that matters individually to get you to where you ultimately want to go.
Yep, 100%, man. Go when you're ready. Go when you're ready. Okay, last thing as it comes to college here is I wanted to look at how many years each of these kids played college hockey before they went on to play in the NHL. So there were 241 American-born players that played college hockey. 211 of them, so that's 88%, played multiple years. There was only 30 kids that played 1 year and then went. You had 63 that played 2 years, and then you had 148 kids that played either 3 or 4 years of college hockey. That's significant. That's 60% of the kids played 3 or 4 years of college hockey. Yeah. And again, it kind of goes back to it. Go when you're ready. Go when you're ready. And I know as a former college coach, I've seen it a lot. Way too many kids get enticed and they go before they're ready. And it's the biggest regret that they have. First of all, they love their college experience. They absolutely love their college experience and they're leaving their best friends and stuff. But at the same time, give yourself the best opportunity to play right away. And typically that's going to be when you're older and more physically mature and more mentally and experientially mature. So again, marathon, not a sprint. That was a big one. I know a lot of college coaches fight that battle of keeping their higher end and their drafted kids. But I think these were just pretty staggering numbers, right? Like 88% of them played multiple years, and 61% of them played 3 or 4. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And I think if you wanted to dive even deeper, I would be interested to see what of the kids that only played 1 year of college hockey, like which ones aren't in the NHL now.
Yeah.
And kind of cross-reference the who made it versus the who didn't kind of thing. That would be an interesting one. Maybe that's for another day.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Let's talk about the NHL draft. So the first round, which should not surprise anybody, the most kids that played in the NHL were drafted in the first round. So 85, right? 85 first round draft picks played in the NHL, 50 second round draft picks. And then after that, there is a huge drop off. You go from 85 and 50 in the first 2 rounds to now in the third round, 26. So that's half of the second round, 23 in the fourth, 20 in the fifth, 17 in the sixth, 10 in the seventh, and then 57 undrafted. 57 of the players were undrafted. So when you look at the numbers, the first round was first at 85, and the next was actually undrafted, which there's an economy of scale thing there. There's a lot bigger player pool of undrafted players than drafted players. But at the same time, it goes back to there's different ways to get there. There's different ways to get there. Any thoughts?
I mean, obviously, I was a guy who was undrafted and signed in the NHL. Didn't play regular season, got to play preseason and called up for playoffs in the press box. But again, develop. Everything. The reason Toph wrote this, there's not one path. First round and then undrafted. It's not second round. It's not third round. The fourth round is undrafted. So I mean, it's pretty telling.
Yeah, and when you look at the draft too, right? We would talk about this at the college level. It's better. There's an argument to be made both sides, but as a kid, it's better to be undrafted than get drafted in the last couple rounds. A lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times. And part of the reason for that is you get to choose the team that you want to go to if you end up becoming a really good college player.
And you have leverage.
You have a lot of leverage when it comes to signing, for sure.
Yeah.
But you talk about wanting to actually play in the league.
Yeah.
You get to decide the best fit for you.
Yep.
You get to decide, hey, this team, they're losing this many players and they don't have a lot of young guys, or this team's offering me this much. They really want me, as opposed to this team now has control over you. And if you don't fit into their plans, it's that the control is with them. So
Right.
You talk about that leverage. And so, yeah, when you look at it, man, top 2 rounds, 135 players drafted. All rounds after that, there's only 96 combined. That's a lot of a difference between the
Big
top
difference.
2 and the bottom 5.
Yeah,
And then you have
100%.
the undrafted. You throw that in there, 57 undrafted. You could make a pretty good argument that it's better to be undrafted than get drafted in the last couple rounds of the draft.
Right. Yeah, and again, leverage, especially now, and for sure, this is why a bunch of guys get games every single year at the end of the year. Is if you're undrafted and you have multiple teams wanting to sign you, you say, well, who's going to give me an NHL game?
Yeah.
Somebody, if any of you if 5 teams want you, and you say, somebody put me right in the NHL at the end of this season. I mean, you're going to pick the team that does that. No
it's
matter
a nice
what.
little sweetener. It's a recruiting chip.
I mean, it's and you're not if you're drafted, you don't have that. You can't play them against each other. You know, I had one of my guys do that, 2 years ago, and finished the season in the NHL, scored his first NHL goal. He's played a few games in the NHL since, but those were the most games in a row in the NHL that he played because he had multiple teams wanting to sign him after his sophomore year, and was able to leverage them against each other and get that type of offer. So, and it is life-changing. Worked his whole life for that.
Yeah.
And if he was drafted, he wouldn't have had that opportunity. So it's still really nice getting drafted. Don't get me wrong.
For sure. 100%. Yeah, like that's a pretty cool. We don't want to underestimate that. Like that is a really cool moment for a lot of kids to be able to do that and go to the development camps and be a part of that. So yeah, that's a good point. Let's not minimize that. That's really freaking cool to get drafted. But like again, 7th round draft picks, only 10 of them. Only 10 out of the 288 were drafted in the 7th round. There's a lot of work to be done. Draft day is the beginning of the journey. It's not the end of the journey. Right? It's the beginning of the journey. It's not the end. You have to continue to keep working, especially when you're in those bottom rounds. Okay, a couple more really interesting stats when it comes to the draft. So I said earlier we were going to have a unique stat about the NTDP when we were talking about that, and this is going to be the unique stat for the NTDP. 54 players were drafted in the first round of the NHL draft from the NTDP. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. There were only 2 players that made the NHL that went to the NTDP that were undrafted.
Wow.
That's it. Only 2 players out of the 57 that went to the NHL from the NTDP that were undrafted. I feel like that's pretty significant. The NTDP is not necessarily the best place to be for a player that needs a lot more runway, for a player that, might not be one of the better players on the NTDP. Would you say that that's a pretty accurate statement based on those numbers?
Yeah, and just I know guys who've played there and been one of the guys, and I know guys who played there and, went in one of the highest scoring players in the country for their age and came out, not all they did, but their role on the team was 3rd, 4th line grind. Not a lot of PP, next to no PP, some guys that helped and some guys that hurt, so again, it all comes down to looking in the mirror, and whatever choice you make, whatever your path is, it's up to you to make the most out of it. Take every resource you possibly can from everywhere it is that you play, every coach that you play under, everyone you come across, saving and sharing my Instagram posts, listening to this podcast, sharing them. These are the types of things you can be doing to actually grow and develop and become one of those later bloomers.
Yeah. Okay. A couple other things before we move on. The top 2 states for developing first rounders were Minnesota and Michigan at 17 and 16. So just thought that was an interesting stat. There's a pretty big drop off after those 2. And then this one was really interesting. And you know that I've been beating kind of the Minnesota drum and the community model drum a lot lately. And this is a pretty interesting stat that popped out to me. So of the 57 players that played in the NHL from Minnesota, so there were 57 from Minnesota that played in the NHL, 12 of them were undrafted players. Okay, so 12 of them were undrafted. And of those players that were undrafted, 11 out of the 12 played all 4 years of high school. They played up until their senior year of high school before going to junior hockey and potentially college hockey. So I put the line in here, man, if I'm a late bloomer, I hope to God that I'm from Minnesota. That's what I think the community model does better than everywhere else in the country is they leave the most room for the late maturing kids. In the AAA model, the professional model, whatever you want to call it, the talent pyramid gets narrowed at such a young age that kids are either losing their confidence and not liking the sport or leaving the sport and not reaching up to their full potential because their love of the game has been kind of destroyed because they didn't get picked on the top team at 9 or 10 or 13 or whatever. And Minnesota leaves room for they don't narrow the pyramid, man. They don't narrow the pyramid. And so that's where I think when you look at Minnesota, and we can get into this a little bit later, but why they continue to develop the most amount of elite players is because they develop the most amount of players to begin with. And when you have strength in numbers, right? As many as possible for as long as possible in the best environment possible. That's the development mantra. And that's what Minnesota really holds to. The AAA model doesn't. That's not as many as possible for as long as possible. You know, it's narrowing the pyramid earlier and earlier and earlier. And that's not the right way to develop the most amount of elite players, in my opinion. And I think that's what the numbers show.
Totally agree. I love it. If I was going to stay, I hope to God I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah, if I'm a late bloomer, I hope to God I grew up in Minnesota. Yeah. So that was an issue. 11 of the 12 undrafted players out of Minnesota, you know, they played high school hockey through their senior year.
Pretty cool.
Interesting stat.
Pretty
okay,
cool.
Let's move on. The AHL. So to play in the NHL, the AHL is a very big part of that process. It's a very big part of that process. You played in the league for years. You know that you know that life very, very well. And so when you look at the numbers, you know, I kind of went by game increments. So there were 61 of the 288 that didn't play a game in the AHL. They either went right to the NHL or played, you know, up to 10 games. That was it. They're your surefire NHLers. Then 10 to 50 games, you had 42. 51 to 100 games, you had 67. 101 to 150 games, you had 48 of them. 150 to 200 games, you had 29. 201 to 300, you had 26. And then between 300 and 500 plus AHL games, you had 15. So again, everybody's got a different path, man. Everybody's got a different path. When you look at it, when you kind of average it out, you would say that people who played probably spent on average 2 to 3 years playing in the American Hockey, 1 to 2 years, 3 years, somewhere in that range, playing in the American Hockey League.
What a league. What a league. Always hungry league. That's what the guys in the NHL call it. It's just so funny. Such a good league, but you learn to be a pro there. You learn what it takes to be consistent. You learn what it takes to play back-to-back nights in pro hockey with travel. You know, you learn so many things playing in the American Hockey League. And I don't know, when I was first turned pro in 2008, barely any young guys were going right to the NHL. Like almost none. Like first rounders, top 10 picks, maybe. Other than that, you were playing in the AHL no matter what, getting seasoning. Now, more and more younger guys are getting a game or 2 or 3 out of college and things like that, and maybe up and down a little bit. But when I was playing, it was like you were going to the American League for at least half a season to a season, probably 2 for the most part. And, you know, I think that the NHL, like you kind of see that reflected in some of the maturity levels of some of the younger players and things like that they didn't go down and have to freaking ride the bus and you know, battle every single night. And, you know, like you can see that. But, again, everybody's path's different.
Yeah. And the thing that I wrote about on here, which I think is kind of like the, you know, the lesson or the message that comes from this. And it's the reason why I wanted to dive into it, is that chances are you're going to get cut. And a lot of these guys that go up there, that might be the first time they've ever been cut in their lives, right? They might get sent down when they get sent down. And so I really believe that the most important life skill to have if you want to play in the NHL is you have to be resilient. Number one, it's a hard life. You're making a lot of money, but being a professional hockey player is extremely mentally and physically difficult and taxing, and it wears on you. Like it is a hard lifestyle to live. So that's number one. And then number two, like it's the best league in the world, man. And you're competing with other people of your ability and of your age to be able to be one of these select few people that are able to play in that league. And I know so many players, as I'm sure you do, that if they were resilient, they would have had much better careers in hockey. But they get punched in the face for the first time, metaphorically. They get sent down for the first time, and they don't know how to handle it. They're pointing fingers, they're blaming, they're making excuses rather than what you say, develop. There's a reason why you're getting sent down. And that reason is because you need to be better. You need to get better. And so some players take that to heart and do it. Some don't. And so look, guys, like on average, you're going to play between 1 to 3 years, let's just call it, in the American Hockey League to play in the NHL. Like it's a part of the journey. It's a part of the process, and embrace that. It's big.
I remember being at a camp in Boston. I remember, guys crying because they didn't even get to touch the ice because they didn't come into camp in good enough shape. And like they had been the guy where they were playing, whether that was college or juniors or whatever. And they didn't even get to step on the ice in main camp. They immediately got sent down to the American League. And just like, how many goals did that guy score last year? Oh my God, he scored that many. Didn't even get one skate at the main camp because didn't come in prepared, and those things I'll never forget. And my first year, again, I always use myself as an example just because I know what I saw and what happened. I remember I hadn't played hockey in a year and a half. And I played 5 out of the 7 NHL preseason games because I came in like a bat out of hell, absolutely murked testing. I was flying around the ice in the first few skates, just because I was in such better shape than other guys. And there's first, second rounders who played less games than me, third rounders, way less games. One of them didn't even get out on the ice till the third day at camp because he didn't pass his bike test. And then they cut him and sent him down right away, and just wild. Like, again, doesn't matter what your path is. It's up to you to be ready. It's up to you to develop. It's up to you to grow. It's up to you to work on your resiliency muscles every single day because it's not going to be easy. But my God, will it all be worth it?
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. Okay, so on top of that, wanted to look at the different positions in the AHL. Different positions. So, like, are there between forwards, defense, and goalie, is there more time spent in the AHL at the different positions? And going into it, you kind of think and you've heard and you've seen, defensemen take a little bit longer of time, goalies take the longest time, and forwards, but that actually wasn't the case. Goalies for sure spent the most time in the AHL. That could be a numbers thing. There's only 2 on an NHL roster. But forwards spent an average of 102 games in the AHL for the ones that played in the NHL. This isn't to start. This is just overall how many NHL or AHL games you played. And defensemen were 84. So it was interesting to see that there were more forwards, or like the average amount of games played in the AHL was more for forwards than it were for D. That was an interesting one for me.
Doesn't surprise me. I think it's easier to play defense.
You think so?
I think it's easier.
It's easier physically, not necessarily mentally, though.
I think it's you can obviously defensemen always play more minutes than forwards. It's less skating. Yeah, I looking back, I played defense as a kid, and I'm always like, damn, dude, I'm 6'2", long stick. Probably should have stayed a D-man, Damn, Paul Stasny scoring all the goals. So I was going to say,
who's Stas going to feed for all those breakaways? Well,
the reason I changed to forward was because of Paul, because I was trying to wheel end to end all the time in squirts, and my dad was like, Jeff, you're a D-man. You got to pass the puck. Stop trying to skate it yourself. And I remember being like, yeah, Dad, but I want to score goals like Paul. He's like, then play forward. And that's why I started playing forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So anyway, okay, let's keep going here. So the next thing that I wanted to look at was positions. So do we as Americans develop players better at different positions or worse at different positions, whatever it may be? And so on the whole, when you look at like the percentage of American born players to the amount of players in the NHL, forwards and defensemen were pretty reflexive. But goalies were way behind. And I think that the biggest issue, and I've been to a lot of these USA Hockey like affiliate talks as a keynote speaker over the past couple months, and one of the things that has come up in every single one is a goalie shortage. There's a goalie shortage. And we need more goalies, like numerically. We need more numbers that are playing the position. And again, this goes back to the professional model, man. Like the more we specialize kids at an early age with positions and single sport and all that kind of stuff, like That's not the right way to develop our players. And so, like, we should be rotating goalies through mites and into squirts, in my opinion, and more kids will choose to play the position moving forward. And there's other things that you can do to help entice kids to want to play goalie too. But we need more goalies in the US, and that bears out in this project here.
Stop shooting at their heads in practice, guys.
Well, the other thing too that you hear from a lot of goalie people is use intermediate nets when the kids are young. Don't put them in full-size nets, because when you put them in full-size nets, it's really easy to score on them. And when it's really easy to score on them, they're not going to want to play the position. They're like, I'm getting scored on all the time. Why am I doing this? So like, again, like age-appropriate stuff, like hockey players shouldn't be using full-size nets.
I agree with that. That's awesome.
They shouldn't.
Yeah.
They shouldn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was by positioning here. Next thing we'll talk about, and this is the last one here, guys. Last one here is the youth hockey journey and where players are from. The youth hockey journey and where players are from. And so, again, going back to it, we've said it before, like, the team that had the most was Minnesota, 58. I think I said 57 before. I don't know why I said 58, but 58 NHL players from Minnesota, and that was by far the most. That was by far the most homegrown talent. And we've already kind of said why. And the interesting part too is 53 of the 58 played high school hockey. Wasn't full season AAA. It wasn't moving out to different areas. It was, no, we're going to play high school for our high school team. 53 out of the 58 played high school hockey. Not all of them played all 4 years. A lot of them did play 3 or 4 years of high school hockey. However, 53 of the 58 played high school hockey, and coincidentally, the 5 that didn't played at Shattuck. Played at Shattuck, and Shattuck is an absolute wagon, right? So, but again, as long as possible, as many as possible, in the best environment as possible, you have athletes that are choosing hockey. Like, that's the thing, right? You're a strength and conditioning coach. When we have more really good athletes choosing our sport, we're going to have more elite players, right? Am I off saying that?
Weird how that works.
And so, because it was funny, I was talking to Nar about this the other day. We were just talking about different models and yada, yada, yada of youth hockey. And like, the thing that really matters is environment. The thing that really matters is environment. And I don't want to talk about this too much right now, because I want to talk about it at the end. But Minnesota has created an incredible environment for players to develop their love and passion for the game, their skills, and that's why they're number one. Community model. Anyways, moving on. Kind of the opposite of the community model is next, actually, in Michigan. So Michigan was next on the list. And we're from the Midwest, and we know that Michigan has always developed a ton of high-level players, especially it's the Red Wings, and when the Red Wings were winning all their cups, and there were just so many, we used to always love going up to Michigan and play. And so they're next on the list, but there's a couple things that like really stood out as it relates to Michigan hockey. And one of the things, and Michigan is kind of known for this, and it has been for a long time, the amount of kids that were from like other areas and then moved to Michigan to bill it, or maybe their families even moved. Like, there was more that did that in Michigan than anywhere else in the country, like by far. And that's not counting like the academies and the prep schools. I don't count that in that. But right. Like Michigan had, and I wrote this in the article, like Michigan had to institute like residency rules for their teams because it became such a big issue that there were so many kids from outside of Michigan coming in to play AAA that they were like, whoa, like we got to focus a little bit more on Michigan kids here, guys. And so like there was, of the kids that play in the NHL, like there were quite a few that like moved into Michigan from non-traditional areas or even traditional areas to do that. And the other thing was like, there was a lot of club hopping. So when you look at like their midget hockey, you go to like elite prospects, like a lot of kids played at different organizations in midgets, which is interesting. Like you should, again, we go back to community. That's not community. That's not community. You can have community in the AAA model, but that's not it. That's not it. You know what I mean?
That ain't right.
So it was interesting. Those two things stood out in looking at all the journeys that had ties to Michigan. Yeah. So like if you are in the know of youth hockey, like you kind of hear different things and see different things. Like Michigan, probably more than anywhere else, there's like a lot of like parent influence, business interest type stuff. It's an issue there. It's different in different places, but like especially in the greater Metro Detroit area, like it's a bit nutty and it's a bit insane. And so that was just interesting. But still, they still keep churning out high level players though, right? Like there's a lot of good coaches, you know, there's some good things going on too, but like the culture there isn't phenomenal.
And there's 8,000 AAA teams.
I think there's 8, but it's still a lot.
Feels like 8,000.
It feels like 8,000. So next on the list. So the way that I did this is I did it by districts. So USA Hockey splits its districts up into 12 different districts. And I should actually say that to include a kid in a district. So let's say a kid did move to Michigan, like they had to be there for 3 years to be included in the Michigan number. So if you moved, and there was like a lot of like sons of NHL players that moved multiple times, you know, and spent different times in different cities and things like that, which was a little tricky to try and figure out. But I only counted you in the number for that district if you were there for 3 or more years. So if you just went to like Michigan for 1 year, you weren't counted in that number. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I went by the districts. I'm going to put Massachusetts next because it's a standalone state, even though Central was next, but that Central is Missouri, Illinois, and Wisconsin. So Massachusetts, I've written about this. There's these Boston Globe articles about this, but there is such a toxic culture in a lot of different ways in the back and forth and the butting of heads between like the town community model and the AAA professional model. It's not very healthy right now. And Massachusetts has a lot lower numbers of players that are playing. They've probably been buffered by the fact that the Bruins have been so good. But now that the Bruins are probably going to take a big step back here in the next 5 or so years, like that's going to hurt their numbers even more. And so, again, it goes back to it. Like there's only almost like too many different options in Massachusetts. And people are like trying to figure out what's best for their kid. So just in the numbers, when you look at it, like from midget hockey on, 9 kids played Towner Catholic High School, 7 kids played full season AAA, and then 21 played prep school. So like, again, there's a path for everybody. Many more played in the prep, but like, yeah, Massachusetts got some cleaning up to do. And I've said this stat earlier, but like in 2003, Minnesota had 16 less NHL players than Massachusetts. 20 years later, in 2023, Minnesota had 35 more NHL players than Massachusetts. That's a 50-player swing in 20 years. Woo. One kind of stayed true to community model. One, the rinks, so many more of these community rinks got bought up, which brought in the privatized model, interests of profit, all that kind of stuff. And you're seeing the results. So those are like the big 3, right? Like Minnesota, Michigan, and Massachusetts have always kind of been the big 3 and continue to be. But yeah, any thoughts on any of those?
No, I mean, all of those are like all the states that growing up had all the best players too. I mean, they're obviously still producing, you know, so again, and all different ways. So showing you, again, whole point of Toph doing this, showing you there's so many different ways. No one path is guaranteed. No one path, there's no chance.
Yeah.
You know, it's Yeah, that is super interesting. Man, I hated all those states at like the
I
central
know, right?
districts too. Like you're talking
Well,
about
we
them
were
and all,
Central District at the national camps. We played Michigan in the finals every year, and they beat
yeah.
us in the 16s year, and we beat them in the 17s year.
Yeah, we did, baby. We won that
Michigan.
gold.
Okay, next is the last standalone state that we'll talk about, and that's New York. I spent a lot of time in New York, lived there for a long time in central New York, and your typical areas in New York, you got like the New York City, Long Island area, and then you got Syracuse, Buffalo, and kind of like northern New York, a couple kids. Yeah, like Long Island, best players to come out of there. You think about Adam Fox and Charlie McAvoy, two staples of American defensemen, that are going to play for a long time. Syracuse, guys like Al Tuck and Joel Farabee. Buffalo, Patrick Kane's from Buffalo. Alex Iafallo playing for the Winnipeg Jets right now. Northern New York, Jordan Greenway and Zach Bogosian, hometown New York, Northern New York boys. And so, yeah, like New York has done a pretty good job. It's very different in Long Island than it is in Syracuse and Buffalo. I'll tell you that much. A lot more kind of privatized craziness in New York City, Long Island, than it is in upstate and central New York, which still has a little bit of a semblance of that community type model. But yeah, New York nonetheless next. And then let's talk about where we're from, Central. So you had 16 kids from Chicago, 10 from St. Louis, and 10 from Wisconsin that play in the NHL. And so Chicago, 9 out of the 16 actually played at the Mission. So Gino Cavallini and the job that they've done there. 9 out of the 16 from the Mission, over half. And then you go to St. Louis, all 10 played for the AAA Blues. All 10 played for the AAA Blues. But the interesting one, and you've talked about this, over half of them played both high school hockey for at least a year or two and not just AAA. And I know that's something that has been a burr up your ass for a long time, but maybe your thoughts have changed a little bit, or they have not.
No, they have not.
The biggest thing is you hate the fact that they play both. There's no rest. There's no recovery. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like myself included, the best players in St. Louis that play high school, a lot of them won't play all the games. Like I think the rule here might be like you have to play 9 or 10 games or dress in 9 or 10 games.
Yeah.
And like Dobis, who's in the NHL now, he played high school. And there was like 2 or 3 games where he sat on the bench. And like he's obviously by far not even close, way better than the other goalie they had. But they just dressed him but didn't play him so that he could get his games, played so that he could play in playoffs. And he wouldn't play. And like I played maybe a third of the games when I played high school for 1 year.
Oh, did you actually play high school for a year?
I played high school for a year, but I went to the coach and I said, look, my goals are to play junior hockey and college and beyond. And so I would love to play for the team, but AAA is my main thing. I won't come to any high school practices because like we were so bad that they weren't going to make me any better. They were just going to make me tired. Totally. And I was like, and I'll play against the teams where you need me to win. But like other than that, I'm not going to come. And I was just upfront with them. So I was like, so if you're okay with that, I would love to be part of the team. If you're not okay with that, I totally understand, and I'm not going to play for the team. And the coach was like, I'm fine with that. Let's do that. And is that fair to guys who are there all the time and maybe aren't better? Maybe not. Life's also not fair. But if they would just do it before and after, things would be different, and guys could play all of the games, and it would make high school hockey way better here, and guys could still get their workouts in, and they wouldn't be overworked doing 15 skates a week, between AAA or Central States and high school hockey. So it could just be run better, more like the Minnesota model in my mind.
And that's kind of what Wisconsin does. They have a little bit more of a before and after type thing where they'll play for Team Wisconsin at the beginning of the year and then play for their high school. There were 10, and I think 7 out of the 10 played some form of high school hockey, supplemented by AAA with Team Wisconsin. And Team Wisconsin's done a great job, man. Like I remember when I was coaching midgets here in Illinois for that 1 year, and Team Wisconsin, like they were really freaking good, like really, really good. And so, yeah, you shouldn't be playing both during the year, but that split in different areas, I think more areas around the country should look at that, or at least have a discussion about it,
And economically, we talk about, and everyone bitches about how much our sport costs. You go to the before and after, you're playing half your season or a third of your season for those high school games in your city, state area. You're not going out of town. It immediately lowers your yearly cost of hockey by doing that, which for me is one of the biggest things that anyone that's making decisions in hockey needs to be thinking out for the future of our game.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. So that's Central. Next is Atlantic. So that's like New Jersey and Philly. And so, yeah, there were 24 players that came through there. It's funny, 63%, 14 of the 24 played at least 1 year of high school hockey. So it's a thing out there as well. But yeah, when you look at the players that have come through there, the New Jersey Rockets had the most from a youth perspective that played with their program, and Team Comcast, which used to be the big team in Philly, they had the most amount of players from the Philly area that came through there. Pacific is next, and Pacific is really interesting because if you're looking at like production of players to go play in the NHL, California has one less than Illinois. California, there's 15 players from California that play in the NHL. That's awesome, right? Like that's pretty cool.
I'd love to see that, because when we were doing Central Districts 15, 16, 17, Pacific was point
They were
night.
awful.
It was Pacific and Rocky Mountain. You knew it was point night. So I love to see that.
Yeah, so they're doing a good job there. We had Brett Beebe on the podcast a little bit ago, Western Michigan grad, and he's very involved in that scene down there in California. And I'm sure he had his hand in a lot of those kids. Like he's the man. And so it's really cool to see so many kids from California. And then you had a couple from Washington, Oregon, Jacob McDonald, actually, who I coached at Cornell, and then Jeremy Swayman's from Alaska. Alaska is part of Pacific as well. Next is New England, mostly represented by Connecticut. 9 out of the 18 were Connecticut, but then you got New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Maine. Most of the kids that are from Connecticut and from that area end up going to play prep school out east in the preps. And then you had 3 that went to Shattuck too. You had 3 that went to Shattuck. So Shattuck obviously does a great job of developing players out there. Mid-Am was next. I was actually a little bit surprised that there weren't more in Mid-Am. So that's Pittsburgh and Ohio. And so there's only 6 from Pittsburgh, which surprised me. I thought there'd be more. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I would like to see maybe traditionally and historically how much that was. But they had a great leadership group there. Columbus has 5, and that's probably the fact that the hockey there is a little bit more new. The Jackets are a relatively new NHL organization. There wasn't a ton going on there in their leadership. Trags we've had on the podcast as well. And Trevor Edwards, who's running Pittsburgh, he was on the podcast too. Great guys. But yeah, that's an emerging market, I would say. I think you're going to see more coming out of that area in the future. Rocky Mountain was next, and that's like Colorado, Arizona, Texas were the 3 biggest ones. A couple interesting ones there. First, I think you have to talk about Austin Matthews, Arizona kid, played in Arizona all the way through until he went to the NTDP. First overall pick in the draft, and now his line mate Matthew Nyes is an Arizona kid too. So you have to think he kind of paved the way for him. The one really interesting stat out of Rocky Mountain was there was a spree from the 94 to 97 birth years where there were 6 players that played with the Colorado Thunderbirds that made the NHL. And so Angelo Ricci ran that program at the time. That was right around the time that I was coaching in college. So, got to see some of those teams, and yeah, like 6 players out of 4 birth years from a non-traditional area. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to say the least. And then 4 kids from Texas that went on to play as well. And so that's the Rocky Mountain District. Southeast, there were 10 kids from the Southeast, 5 from Florida, 3 from the DC area, and then a kid from Alabama, Nick Dowd, and Kyle McLean was in Carolina for a bit while his dad was coaching for the Hurricanes. So again, 5 kids from Florida, guys. 5 kids from Florida that ended up playing in the NHL last year. When would you ever think that? And that's only going to increase with how good the Lightning and the Panthers are right now, winning their cups and being at the top of the league.
And how many hockey players retire and live there because of no taxes.
Yeah. And then they're coaching their kids 100%. Yeah. 100%. And then last is Northern Plains. That's like North Dakota, South Dakota. You had 4 from there, 2 from North Dakota, 1 from South Dakota, 1 from Montana. The Montana kid was Jake Sanderson. His dad's Jeff, longtime NHL player. They actually moved up to Calgary to play when he got a little bit older. His dad's from Alberta. But yeah, so that's kind of where everybody's from. Maybe a little bit of the backstory. Probably spent too much time on it, but it is what it is. But then like the last thing I want to talk about here, and then we'll end this, is I kind of had 3 takeaways, and they're all very similar in the sense that like there's a path for everybody. There's a path for everybody. And the first thing that I talked about is where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I just laid out a lot of information and perspective that really highlights the fact that there's so many different paths to get there. There's the path for the early mature. There's the path for the late mature. There's a path for people in traditional areas. There's a path for people in non-traditional areas. There's a path for people who are surefire NHLers that go right to the show, to the ones that spend hundreds of games playing in the American Hockey League. There's ones that go to college. There's ones that don't go to college and play major junior, although that's going to change. Like whatever path you choose, it's in your control, man. Make the best of it. At the end of the day, make the best of it.
It's up to you where you go. A door closes, it's your job to find a window. Another door closes, find another window. Find a way. Seek every possible opportunity out you can. Watching video, training, nutrition, sleep, skill work, everything you can do. It's up to you. No one can do it for you.
Everything you do is up to you. You're a poet. You didn't even know it. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
The second thing is it's all about people and environment. It's all about people and environment. And I'll get back to like Nar and I were talking the other day, and it like you talk about these models, the AAA model versus the community model, where you're from, all this kind of stuff. Again, like you can make it from anywhere. You can make it from anywhere. The most important things is that the environment that's created, the people that you're around, how much are you falling in love with the game? How much are the people that are around you challenging you to get better? What type of coaching are you getting? Like, because at the end of the day, you know, the community model and the professional model, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. But as you see, plenty of people came from both of those kinds of models. What matters is the people, and what matters is the environment. If I had any advice to any kid out there or any parent that has a kid, it would be to surround your kid with the best people that you can. That will put them in the best position to be able to reach their dreams at the end of the day. Bar none. If there's anything to take out of everything we've talked about today and what you read in the article, like there's so many different paths, and it should be all about people and environment when you're making decisions on where to play.
Toph and I have been saying since day one of this podcast, however many years ago and a half years ago, you will become the sum of the 5 people you're around most. And so make sure you choose wisely what teams you're playing on. Does the organization, the team, the coach, the other players, do they have a growth mindset? Is the culture positive? You know, are they trying to grow, quality citizens and young men and young ladies, or is it all about hockey and that's all that matters? And they're crazy and things like that. Like the culture, the environment, the people, the players, the organization, the leadership in the organization, all of these things matter so much into the headspace that your child is going to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And forget about making the NHL. That should be a staple for your kids' mental health and just well-being as well. Surround them with the best people possible. And then lastly, you said it this entire time, just like blaze your trail. Every single one of these paths was different. All 288. It's up to you. It's up to you to blaze your own path. Doesn't matter if you live in Florida. It doesn't matter if you live in Minnesota. It doesn't matter if you live in Arizona. It doesn't matter if you're an early mature or a late mature. The more that you think about things that are in your control, the more you focus on your attitude, your work ethic, your detail, your preparation, your competitiveness, all the things that we can control, you're going to put yourself in a better position to reach your dreams at the end of the day. And for me, like I've said this a lot, and I said this in the piece, I think making the NHL is really hard. It's extremely hard. It's a 1 in a million. I don't know what the freaking percentages are, but they're not good. But I think it's really good for the soul, and it's really good to have a lofty dream and to put everything you have into a dream that is, you got to put everything you have into it, to even come close to having an opportunity to reach that dream. And I am who I am. Neither of us made it. You got really freaking close, and I'll say it, you wouldn't say it. There were extenuating circumstances with your head injuries that if that didn't happen, you probably wouldn't have made it, right? We didn't make it at the end of the day, but we are who we are, and we are both very successful today because of the pursuit of that dream. And even though we didn't make it, it's the reason why we are successful today. And so focus on the things that you can control. Surround yourself with really good people and blaze your own path, man. And we've said it on the podcast before, there is no better time to be successful than today. Why? Because there are so few people who actually do the work to put that in. Everybody's got an excuse. Everybody wants the easy way, and society in the world has taught us to take the easy way. We can do anything easier than we could before. But like, that's where there's so much opportunity in that. And for every kid listening right now, like, be the one of one, man. Be the one. Be different. Be different and go after this with everything that you have. It will be so good for you. And you might not make it at the end of the day. Chances are, I don't want to say that you're not, but like the percentages aren't in all of our favor, to say the least. But have that dream, man. Put everything you have into it. And hopefully this, this little project that I did reinforces that, everybody's got a path.
Just live it.
Live it, bro. Live it, man. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. If you haven't read it yet, go to the bottom of the show notes. It's there. And thanks for everybody for the feedback. Love it. The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and draw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, maybe even more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only, and bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.